Happy Easter, my friends in America, where I was born to Fulbright students, in Europe, where I grew up, in Russia, where I earned a lot of money and made lots of friends, where my children were born, in Ukraine, where I've made many more friends over the recent years, to all my friends of the Christian faith who are celebrating the highest holiday of the year today, after the suffering of the christening on Friday. We're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ today. In the sense of the Holy Trinity in Christianity, of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the sense of the Trinity on which European values are built, according to Theodor Heuss, Germany's first president, the Acropolis for democracy, the Capitol in Rome for the rule of law, and Golgotha for love thy neighbor. I would like to propose a trinity to resolve the issues we face in this world and to arrive at a peaceful world. Germany, with its peace marches on Easter Sunday, has contributed to the end of the Cold War, and Germany stands at the front of history now, facing a potential new Cold War or potential hot war. We're also facing a major attack on the ability of us to survive as a species. Many other species are already going extinct because of our excessive consumption of oil, gas, and coal, and the CO2 emissions globally. And yet, this is a day of hope, this is a day of resurrection, and I'm very confident we can move forward together, given all the friends I know across Russia, Ukraine, the European Union, England, America, China, the world indeed, the Middle East. As far as the Russian attack on Ukraine is concerned, I am both blessed and tormented by my Russian language skills, which means that I can speak to Ukrainian soldiers in the front lines, which means I can speak to Ukrainian refugees in Berlin living with us, and I hear about the horror that Russia is inflicting on its neighbors, on innocent citizens, on women and children, and on the soldiers. I am terrified by the public television broadcast in Russia, in Russian, where they propose just now on live TV, equivalent to Germany's first channel, that one should look to give all citizens of Kharkov a 24-hour or 48-hour notice, and then eradicate the city of 800,000 people off the face of the earth. I'm shocked by the treatment of potentially innocent attackers of the concert hall in Moscow. The idea to publicly beat up people and parade them beaten up in TV is a horrible, horrible sign of the brutality that the Russian society is currently being exposed to propaganda-wise, and the brutality the Russian government is exerting on its neighbors. It is naive to think that Russia would stop without force being put towards it. We were naive after the Crimea takeover by Russia to, for example, forbid issuance of European visa to certain people on the sanctions list, but to let them travel to Europe on diplomatic passports and to let them enjoy life, education, health services in Europe. So we need to be strong to be able to stop Russia. To achieve peace, we need to be strong. We should not watch as Ukraine tries to recruit 500,000 young men to the war to defend its borders. But we must understand this is a war to defend the European values I mentioned. We Europeans must recognize that it's us who should be sending 500,000 young men or elder men like myself to the front line in Ukraine, be it to Finland, the Baltics, Poland, Ukraine, and other countries. Once we have 500,000 men there, we will think about air defense and the military equipment to send in a different fashion. That is what is required to stop Russia. On the other hand, we've missed many opportunities to learn the lessons of success and to share them that the European Union offers. We created 70 years of peace thanks to major European empires giving up their sovereignty in the sense of submitting to one common body of law, the Aquis Communautaire, and outsourcing the highest judicial authorities to Luxembourg and Strasbourg. This is the model that we should share with Russia. In return for us supporting our Eastern European neighbors and friends and partners in the European Union in this onslaught, we also must agree with them now that there should be a real option to include Russia into the European Union. Not the Russia as of today, but a Russia signed up to the liberal values that we share in Europe. Russia is a country full of amazing people, of amazing, warm and loving and caring people, intelligent artists, scientists. They live abroad today in Georgia, where I'm recording this message from. Other countries, the world, Berlin. We must not give up on them. We must succeed. And to succeed, we must learn from the lessons of the past. We must open a genuine, open hand and invite Russia into the European Union. At the same time as we deliver Taurus and 500,000 troops to the border. That, to my mind, will bring us the peace we deserve and we can celebrate. The other thing we should stop doing in life is to be naive, to fool ourselves, and to be scared. What Russia wants is us to be scared. We don't need to be scared. The Russian GDP is about $1 trillion. The EU GDP is about $14 trillion. If you compare this to a child growing next to their father, this is not a child at my shoulder, at my belt, at my knee. At 1/10 the size of the European economy, the Russian economy is not a real threat to the European Union. If Russia spends 30% of its GDP in defense spending today, with the European economy 10 times bigger, we just need to spend 3% of GDP to defend ourselves. The size of the Russian economy compared to the European economy is about the size of not of a pit bull terrier, but of a Pomeranian, a teacup Pomeranian, a tiny little doggy. But that tiny little doggy is about to bite through Europe's Achilles tendon and make Europe fall because Europe is not standing together. Europe must spend 3% of GDP on defense, and Europe must raise an army of 500,000 men to bring to the border with Russia to make Russia understand we're serious about defending our values. It is naive to think that if Russia has 12,500 tanks, a German army with 250 tanks is relevant. It is irrelevant. We must have strong military production. We must have means to defend ourselves to be able to reach a common understanding with Russia. Now, as far as sanctions are concerned, we must stop fooling ourselves. 7,000 sanctions later, the Russian economy is booming. People enjoying life. Things are going well in Russia. It is a theory that long-term Russia would suffer. But in fact, through thousands of refrigerators being shipped to Uzbekistan all of a sudden, and the chips being taken out and shipped to Russia to be used as inputs for missiles being fired at Ukraine, we're being fooled once again. We think we can hurt Russia by not buying Russian oil directly, but buying gas somewhere else. Of course, we have had a certain impact for a while. But the real and only measure, the first agenda item at the Ramstein meeting of Ukraine support must be the question: how much oil and gas and coal have you, supporters of Ukraine, consumed last month? More important than soldiers, more important than Taurus, is the source of revenue of Russia. So far, Russia has 20% more revenue than before the war. To stop this situation, we must globally reduce our oil, gas, and coal consumption. And this is where the needs of the global climate crisis, the needs of women suppressed in Iran, the needs of human rights in Brazilian rainforest all come together. To stop the war in Russia, we must move. Sorry, to stop Russia's aggression on Ukraine, of course. We must reduce oil and gas consumption. To do that, there are means which work, which are driven by market economics, that are socially just, that have been proposed for decades, that are supported by 27 Nobel Prize winners, 2,000 economists in the United States of America. It is straightforward economics. It's called the carbon tax and dividend. At externalities of 200 euros per ton of CO2 emitted to the world economy through environmental and health damages to our citizens, an average German citizen or European Union citizen with 12 tons of CO2 emitted per capita causes 2,400 euros in damages a year. In an honest economy, we must tax these externalities at full cost to society. To be just, this money must be distributed per capita to the citizens. This would mean for Europe 200 euro payout per month per citizen. This means what? This means that a woman living on her own at old age, not traveling a lot, not spending a lot, would have a big boost to her income. This would mean someone flying a private jet, a helicopter, having 3 private pools, would pay a lot of tax. It would address the issue where 1% of the richest in the world consume more CO2 than 50% of the poorest. This is socially just, market-driven economics. It is proposed for the first time by Bill Clinton and Al Gore, admittedly, in 1993, but it has been put forward by Bush's economic advisors, Craig Mankiw, the great Harvard economist and microeconomist. It is what we need today to stop Putin. If the G7, the European Union, and NATO introduces a carbon tax and dividend, demand for oil and gas goes down, we can achieve the COP29 targets of 22 gigatons of CO2 reduced by 2030, and we can stop funding the Russian budget. So, climate issues, women's rights, peace in Ukraine, all come with us all going to choose the right mechanism. It is, by the way, also a mechanism to support the free market in a sense. People no longer believe in capitalism because the way it works now, it is exploitative. It can only work if we tax all externalities at full cost. We must start with CO2 emissions. The other issue we lack in the world is, of course, credibility of the capitalist system, but also credibility of the big powers of this world. I find it strange if American president calls for Putin to be judged in front of the International Court of Crimes in Den Haag, but the US hasn't subscribed itself. So Russia, China, and the US must subscribe, follow the same model as the members of the European Union, outsource the highest judicial authority to an independent place, and then we'll have genuine democracies in the world. And with genuine democracies, in my history book, there's never been a war. So on this day, on Easter, with a message of hope, I believe we can do this. We can tax what is a damage to society, helping the poor, taxing those who want to spend a lot of CO2, and create peace in the world by reducing the funding of Putin and his regime at the moment, the funding of the suppressist mullahs in Iran, and reversing climate change. So with this, with my children, their mother, here with me in Georgia, a place full of liberal Russians, full of Ukrainian refugees, full of courageous Georgians, I wish you all a merry, happy Easter, and I'm confident that we will have success. Thank you very much, and happy Easter.